Great. So in honor of International Women's Day, please join us for an enlightening panel discussion as we celebrate the remarkable contributions and explore the challenges faced by women architects in Oregon. Our panelists will share their insights, stories, and strategies for success. And here is the AI continuing education information for you if you want to take a screenshot or write that down. Give you a moment. And if you want to take a moment to read the learning objectives, they're on the screen. I'll give you a few seconds. Great. And with that, I will start things off and we'll do a little bit of a round robin introduction. First off, my name is Elisa Rocha. I am an associate principal at TVA Architects in Portland, and I am also chair of the Committee on the Environment. I've been with TVA now for almost 20 years, just 3 months shy of that anniversary. Very excited and proud of that. And I've been with the Committee on the Environment for approximately 6 years or so. And so it's really great to be a part of this discussion. I will hand it off to Heather.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heather DeGrella. I am with Opsis Architecture. I'm the Director of Sustainable Design here, also an associate principal and a licensed architect. I've been here just over 10 years. Former COTE member, especially through the Green Schools Committee back when it was more directly under the umbrella of COTE. And yeah, with that, I'll hand it over to Han Mei.
Hi, my name is Han Mei Chang. I'm currently taking a personal sabbatical, but just retired or resigned from Hoffman in December of this past year. At Hoffman, I was a project manager and spent 17 years there. And I am also a licensed architect. I've never used it professionally, but always have used my licensure to advocate. And my passion project is really trying to get more diversity in architecture and construction. And so I'm heavily involved with NOMA PDX locally as well, serving as the co-chair for the committee community engagement, where we have Project Pipeline, which is a summer camp for middle school students coming up at the end of June.
This is wonderful. I'm ML Vitas, Mary Louise Vitas, and I'm the moderator for the panel today. And I'm a registered architect in Oregon and an AA member, and recently was elected as secretary of the board of AA Oregon. And I work with Energy Trust of Oregon as senior market outreach manager with the New Buildings program. And I've been with the New Buildings program for 8 years. And it's really fun to just start us off with the tenure of time that the four of us have been in our current roles in some capacity, either within the same organization or something similar. And we met on Monday to talk about what we wanted to talk about. And it occurred to me, it really has been a journey. And if we think about, use the analogy of the Pacific Crest Trail, if you're not familiar with that, it's a very epic journey. So you can start typically people start in Mexico in the very tail end of winter so that it's not too hot, and they go all along up California, Oregon, Washington to Canada. And people do it as a through hiker. They start and go in one season, they go from one end to the other. There's things called trail angels, people that help you. Some people will adopt a trail name. I'm not going to ask people to say what they think their trail name might be or is or whatever, but I do think we can kind of use this as an analogy, and we'll go, the four of us will speak to our journey, highlights, challenges, allies along the way, and that's how we're going to frame today's conversation. So I'll just start off with myself. certainly not a through hiker. I have meandered back and forth on this trail. Sometimes I'm full on and I'm on the trail and I know what my destination is, and sometimes like I don't know where I'm at. I just think that there's a process there that's probably hidden, sometimes very hidden from me, and then sometimes it's made clear. So Heather, would you like to carry with your thoughts on your journey, how you got to where you are, or how you think what helped you there?
Sure. I am definitely not a through hiker. I tend to think every little trail and detour is the way I'm supposed to go because it's a little bit more interesting, and I might eventually find my way back to the main trail, or I might find a whole nother trail. But yeah, I would say even it's going all the way back to my education. I decided after a couple of years in undergrad, after majoring in everything from physics to studio art to psychology and English, that I wanted to be an architect, but we didn't have architecture. So then I went ahead and graduated and went on to another 4 years of architecture school. And then after that, worked for 10 years primarily in the role of a more traditional architect, or up and coming architect, emerging professional, I should say. But at that time, got really interested in sustainability more and more. I had always been an advocate for the environment. I was raised actually on a Yogi Bears campground for a lot of time when I was a youngster, and nature was always really important to me. So when I found through architecture that sustainability was a thing and an important thing, I became very involved outside of my office in starting up the local USGBC chapter that for Central Texas, which was Austin and San Antonio and 55 counties. Was a very, looking back, I think that's probably the biggest accomplishment, I would say. I think that's one of our prompts is, what were some of our biggest accomplishments looking back? It was being involved in that network of people at such a young age, working so hard for something that was so desperately needed, both on the advocacy side, the education side, and getting to know so many other great young leaders in that realm at that time. I'll talk a little bit more about it when we get to some of the further questions about allyship. But there were a lot of young women, demonstrating that leadership role in that way, in a way that they couldn't have found in the traditional profession, maybe within their office. It was a lot different than going to an AIA convention. When you went to those early USGBC conventions, it was just a lot more women, a lot more excitement to me. This is, of course, my memory of it all. Yeah, so recently, I don't want to talk too long. I don't know how much time I have, but recently, last year, I applied for and got my LEED fellowship, which was an amazing journey because I was able to look back over those 20 years of the dedication to sustainability that I had. And so career-wise, what that did was it took me from traditional architect to sustainability consultant to education. I worked for a few years for producing documentaries on sustainability and continuing education classes for LEED. And then for the last 10 years, back into the role of an architecture firm, but focused on sustainability. Yeah, I guess that's.
Thank you.
That's my non-through. Yeah.
Non-through.
My non-through.
Yeah, but it does feel like there was a compass guiding you in a way, that's wonderful. Han-Mei, how about you? How would you describe your journey to how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, I think it's almost a through hiker, but in segments, because that's also a thing. You can do segments of the Pacific Crest Trail, in different chunks to then complete the whole journey. But no, from a very young age, I always loved being a part of what my dad was up to. And he's an engineer by training, but did a lot of custom home building in Southern California. So I grew up on job sites and feeling comfortable walking through construction sites. And my favorite thing was, to take the truck ride with him on a Saturday to check out a project and get a hot dog and soda at the 7-Eleven. And that was my childhood. But then when it came to college, I didn't really know about architecture, but I knew I didn't want to be my dad because I was an angsty teenager and needed to get away. So I looked at the universities that would have architecture and music programs. And on the West Coast, for me, it was University of Oregon. And so I actually started as a double major in architecture and music performance, two very demanding careers, but I was headstrong, which is a common theme for me, thinking I could do both. And after 3 years of double majoring, I decided that music would be my passion and I could always have music, and architecture would be my profession. But fast forward again, after spending a couple years interning at ZGF, which was a really great experience, met a lot of great people that I still keep in contact. It wasn't for me, and I went to Hoffman Construction, and that's where I really found the excitement and the ability to not be the designer, but build the cool projects that the designers design. And so it was a really good fit. I loved it. Project engineer, starting out and running around the job site and having just sky's the limit. It's never a dull moment, as you guys are probably all well aware. But I really enjoyed the building side of it and still do. So I think what I'm feel most accomplished about is just like every project. Every project is so different. All the teams are wonderful and challenging, and just the ability to be able to run family and friends around town and point out to different buildings that I had a piece of, and just reminiscing even the hard times and the great times of the people I worked with. That's really been my favorite part.
Thank you. Yeah, it is. Thank you for reminding me that, it's a legitimate thing on the Pacific Crest Trail to do a segment.
Yeah, so I think I could be considered like I'm off trail right now. Taking a break, but then I'll get back on trail sometime soon.
Elisa, would you like to share your journey, how you got to where you are today, and if there's any highlights or particular fond memory or accomplishment you'd want to share? That'd be wonderful.
Sure. So I would say my journey probably started when I was a young kid, and I used to draw spaces, specifically my room, and trying to redesign it. I didn't like it very much. And I told my dad, oh yeah, I want to be an interior designer. And at the time, and this is kind of interesting considering the context of this discussion, at the time, my father's perception was interior designers were just women. And he said, Elisa, you can be an architect. You don't just need to be an interior designer. You can be an architect. Now, we know interior designers are absolutely as important as architects. At the time, that was his perception. And I took that as my compass. I'm like, you're right, Dad. I can do it. I can be an architect. So I've been kind of laser focused on that. Since that time, I went to California Polytechnic State University and earned my Bachelor of Architecture there, and moved directly into the profession. I studied in Denmark for a year, and with my then boyfriend, now husband, decided that we wanted to search for a city that was walkable and livable like Copenhagen, instead of going back to Los Angeles to practice. So we found ourselves here after a Coast Starlight train, mimicking some of our train travel throughout Europe, found Portland, rented an apartment when you could still do that without a job, and started our careers here. So I've been in the profession now for 28 years, worked for 3 great firms, and let's see, accomplishments and things I'm proud of. I'm really proud of growing as a project manager and as a leader. And I think most specifically in recognizing my value and the values I can bring to projects and to collaborators, learning how to communicate, learning how to prioritize, and just to really bring the best that I possibly can to each project, or, you know, whether it's a architectural project, firm project, home project, relationship project, all of that. I think it's just it's personal growth over the years that I'm really proud of, and just keeps me excited to come to work every day.
Thank you. I'm thoroughly enjoying this. I want to mention, I don't know that we actually called it out, but there is a chat function. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Matt is monitoring those, and we'll get to those at the end. If they seem particularly pertinent, we can drop, you know, turn to those questions during the middle. And also, I'm a real fan of mentors and mentorship. So I'm going to say, like, if you hear something today and you want to follow up with someone, we'll figure out a way for that to happen. And so for myself, my journey, definitely not a through hiker. I actually graduated. I was 45 years old when I graduated with my master's in architecture. I was a stay-at-home mom, and I was a fine artist, painting in oils, and realized I wanted to art. I think people should live with art, and the places where people live, work, and play should be beautiful. And that was my inspiration in realizing people don't do that, but we could do that for them if we made spaces that were truly healthy and were about well-being. And that got me into architecture. And then I realized architecture is actually a way of thinking. And I loved the way that it trained my brain in how to make decisions and how to assess things and how to take in inputs from all different directions and be able to make sense of it. So I am not currently practicing as an architect, but I really value the training I got in architecture. I use it all the time. And yeah, I'm not a through hiker by any stretch. I'm going to shift us now to talking about challenges, and we'll each take it to wherever we want to on the journey. It could be you're going to talk about the blisters that were under your foot, that you figured out how to, if you get a nice pair of boots and you take the time to put on clean socks, it makes a difference. Or, you know, how you persevered through some tough times. So I'll start with something that it's related to people that might be on the career path to becoming licensed as an architect. And I think it also happens to relate to what Elisa was saying about communication. So I had finished the hours needed in order to be eligible to take the architecture exams. At the time, it was still required. Except I had like one category. So I'm going to assume most people are aware, but since not everybody may be aware of what it takes to get licensed as an architect, you need to have a professional degree, and you need to do a number of hours in about 20 different categories in the realm of practicing architecture under the supervision of a licensed architect. So you've got these things that someone's got to say, yeah, you did spend 10 hours on that, and you spent 13 on that, and 25 and 50 on that, and all these things. So there's paperwork involved, and then you have to take and pass the exams. At the time, you had to finish the hours before you were eligible to sit for any of the exams. And I had my very last chunk of hours to be signed off on. Like, I think it was less than a dozen. And it was 2008, and the economy had tanked, and they were laying people off. And I got laid off in April of 2009. And I had I needed a signature from my supervisor, and he wasn't doing it. It was awkward and horrible that he finally did, but just to have to face that fighting for the right to get licensed in a field I had been working in and had the training in was hard. And I think that as a woman, it may have been because I'm female and he's an older white guy, I don't know. I do think there's things that we learn when we're faced with these difficulties of, wait a minute, I need to stand my ground. I need to continue to press. And this is important. And I'm going to say, please sign this form so that I can go take my exams and get licensed. So that was a challenge. And I think I'm going to let this one, whoever of the other three of you want to speak up. I don't want to put anybody on the spot.
I've always found it interesting, like, because on the construction side, it's very male dominated, and they have always been so respectful, because they're afraid to say something wrong in many ways. And the biggest challenges I've had have always been other women, and it's mostly like, I don't know why, but I'm always troubled by that, because it's like, we should be supporting each other. Like, why? Life is already difficult enough. Construction projects are already difficult enough. Like why are we not helping support each other, right? This isn't a competition. This is collaboration, and we're only going to get stronger. And I think that's probably why I've been so headstrong on just advocacy work and like trying to have more women and more people of color in architecture, because we just need more diversity. And there's, we all know the statistics and stuff and why that matters, but I've always been stumped when I come across somebody in the project work and we're fighting each other. It's like, no, this is not how it should be.
I would say, I'll jump in now. My challenges were slightly different in that in the early part of my career, I actually did experience quite a bit of sexism, and it wasn't at my firm, it was more in the field, and it wasn't with general contractors, it was subcontractors. And I remember numerous instances of what was either catcalls or one of my favorites was walking the site during a slab pour, and when the sub said, "It's called concrete." And then I'm like, yes, I know. And other situations, comments like, "Does this meet your wildest dreams?" And that kind of thing. And I always I listened to that and I figured, it's fine. I'm enjoying what I do. I can't let this bother me. But there were times when I thought, this is so stereotypical. Why is this even necessary? But like shedding that, I think some of the other challenges were just in terms of the culture of architecture when I was younger. It's quite a bit different than it is now. What I recall, what my personal experience was that the value was more like butts and chairs, hours at the office. Whoever was working the longest number of hours was the one that demonstrated their commitment and value, which was very difficult to balance with like the work-life balance and raising a family. So I mean, it was hard enough, I would say, that I was with the IDP and licensure process being sequential back then, and trying to earn the hours and having that be out of my control, depending on whether or not a firm had construction administration hours to give or not, that kind of thing, to finally achieving that, moving on to studying for exams and taking them, and balancing taking care of newborn. So there was that side of it. On top of that, there was my desire to be the very best architect I could, which meant I was putting in that same kind of hours or trying to mimic the leadership that I felt was demonstrated to me. And it may have not necessarily been leadership, but more the people that I felt I admired demonstrated that kind of work ethic. So I was trying to mimic that as well. So just trying to balance motherhood, licensure, work-life balance all at the same time is extremely challenging. But I also received a lot of really incredible mentorship and collaborative support. And as I talked more and more to women in my firm, just kind of compared notes, realized that we had a lot of experiences that were the same, and I know probably a lot of people on this call went through the exact same thing. So just overcoming that, and again, recognizing when, what was really valuable in my contribution to my work. It wasn't the hours, it was the quality. And that was a huge life lesson.
Jump in. I've got a few to share. The earliest one being within 6 months of starting my profession. And this has more to do with disability. So I had super excited to go work at the firm where I was working, happy to work those extra hours at that time because I wasn't as worried about work-life balance, which I should have been, and started to develop pain and swelling in my right hand. Turned out I had an autoimmune condition that really threatened my physical well-being in a way that really kind of had my whole world come crashing down on me at that time. And then my employer was not supportive at all, despite getting a really good review for my 6-month review. The main boss actually asked to sit in on the review, and I was so excited to have him sit in because he could hear the great job I had been doing. And instead, it turned out that he was there to demand a doctor's note that I could continue to work despite this condition that we had just found out about. So that was worse than even the news that I gotten about the condition. But I turned that fear and anger into action, and went aggressively into reading about holistic approaches to helping with that condition. But then I also did research on ergonomics and legal issues around that, and what was the responsibility on the office side. And so forced them into doing the right thing. And so that, I think that was, Emil, you mentioned the grit you learn from standing up for yourself and hanging in there. And I will say there were one female coworker in particular who was so supportive for me during that time. Don't know if I could have hung in there otherwise. So I did have that female support. It meant a lot. I think on the side of maybe encountering gender biases, I didn't notice as much of that early in my career. I don't know if I was just oblivious or if it wasn't happening, but I didn't notice it at all, honestly. And there was one, but what I did notice was there weren't many female role models at a higher position, or I said there was one in our entire firm. Everyone else was about pretty much a peer of mine, within a year or two, younger or older. We were all very young. And this one female partner was always heads down, not much of a mentor, kind of standoffish. So I kind of took that a little personally. But what was interesting is years later, when I got pregnant, suddenly I encountered a ton of bias. 3 different male partners. These are the reactions I got. One acted like I cheated on him. One sat down and started writing out my life plan for me. And the other one told me I should stay home with the kids. And that was the first time I had a good heart-to-heart talk with the female partner who confided something I never knew about her, that the reason she was heads down was when she started her family. The same firm told her she couldn't get involved in AIA. She didn't have time. She needed to come in and get her work done, and not spend time doing any extracurriculars, because they knew that her time would be divided between that and her family. So that was an extremely eye-opening event for me. And again, older times, older firm, but yeah, it's a lot of learning there.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead, Lisa, please do. I didn't want to jump in front of you, but I do think it might be a little bit of a side hike we could take onto the how do you bring your authentic self? How do you bring your whole self into your job? And you know, we can talk in terms of gender and gender bias, although I think sometimes it doesn't even have to be that. Just being able to know your strengths and know how to bring them to work is, I'm just hearing a kind of a through line in what we've all been able to mention so far. So if you wanted to carry that one, any of you, let's do. I think it's an interesting topic.
There's a community agreement that I always keep close to my heart. That's like call people out while calling people in. And it's a way to just have confidence and being able to stand your ground. And like, if your gut's telling you this situation is not right, like it's probably true. I don't always have the words, you know, to be able to talk through a situation if it's happening in the moment spontaneously. But being able to have allies, whether they're male or female or coworkers within your companies or externally, I think is a really key piece to being able to talk through it, at least for me, to be able to process it and find like what's the best route to address the situation. But I'm also very thankful to just have those people in my corner, you know, like I hate it when I hear about catcalling and, you know, unprofessional behavior on the job site because it just is so stereotypical and it shouldn't happen. And it's happened to me too. And in those moments where I just didn't have words to be able to fight back or feel strong enough to do so, I've had people speak up for me. And that's where I've always been super appreciative, to go say and take somebody aside and say, hey, that's not appropriate. Like you shouldn't be saying those types of things. But now, you know, what got 20 years behind me, I feel more confident to be able to have those types of conversations for myself and for others. But I think it's important to know that like we all deal with things differently. I'm more of a sit back and like process and then go talk to somebody, versus speak on my feet. But now that, you know, I've seen other people do it for me. I feel more confident in doing that. So I think there's a big piece of just knowing who you are and how you can address situations. But if you are a person that is able to speak on your feet and stand up for others, like thank you, and just keep doing that because we all need to support each other.
I think one of the strengths I've observed, well, I guess a couple things. One, just as a professional, finding myself or my way of collaborating, participating in the profession was to really understand and demonstrate confidence in my ability to find answers and solutions to questions that I don't know. Like to be in a situation where, and I would say we do this every day, we just don't know everything. And we can't. And the beauty of what we do is that they're constantly researching, and we should be constantly being curious and inquisitive and challenging status quo, and really just spending time immersing ourselves in that. So I, over time, learned that in difficult situations, it was just really important to have confidence in my abilities to find those answers and to get the confidence from and the trust from the people I was working with, or really special clients I've had the opportunity to work with, who trusted me and knew that, you know, I wasn't going to pretend I knew something in the moment just to sound like I knew what I was doing, but that the value of me as a professional was that I would come back with the best answer, or potential a variety of answers, so that we could get the best solution. So that was, I think, something I had to learn, because we're always just striving to be the best that we can be, and that was important. But I think in terms of leadership, you know, one of the best things that we can do for each other and for people that we're mentoring is really to demonstrate, you know, to introduce them as a valuable member of the team. to recognize it's important to have a deep bench. And when you're bringing someone to the table, you introduce them as a valuable part of your team. And it's modeling a behavior so everyone in the room knows that they need to show that person as much respect as they're showing you. And I think it pays in dividends because it kind of breaks down barriers and allows that person to thrive, gives that person a voice. And you know, in the end, we're all trying to do really great work. And so why put up roadblocks for that when, you know, there could be someone in the room that has a unique idea you never even thought of. I am really excited to be at TVA because we just became a majority women-owned firm in 2019. We have about 50% of the staff's women. Really value work-life balance and celebrate new families, and women hold leadership in all aspects of the firm. And it's just a great place to be because it's never, I honestly don't think about being a woman at TVA. I just think about the work. And I hope everyone that works there feels the same way, because I definitely see that. I think it's just a rich environment to work at. So I'm gonna hope that for everyone. I would say one other thing before I hand it off is that a pivotal, a milestone, a really important thing that happened in my career was to be a project manager for a really important project in downtown, in my mind, Park Avenue West Tower. And in that, I worked with Eric H.I. Hoffman. I worked with TMT Development and received the most incredible mentorship from Eric, from Lamont Smith, Vanessa Sturgeon, Bob Thompson, so many great people who trusted me to be a part of a project that I feel is really important to the city. And I was a young professional, and I think it was receiving that trust and being empowered to do my work that has really kind of made me who I am now. And I hope that I can provide that opportunity for other folks that I'm working with.
That's a great segue to, we wanted to talk about allyship and who, you know, I think we can each take it either as where they're kind of a guiding light kind of person that they didn't know they were your mentor because you were just, you know, seeing by example, or you know, some of us, maybe you've had an actual mentor or mentors, allies, or it could be an incident where you really needed that support. It's already been voiced a couple of times. So let's talk a little bit about that. Who are the supports, or what were the supports that you remember or feel like were particularly important for you on the journey? And we'll let any of you that want to chime in.
I think just on a day-to-day basis, you know, the little demonstrations of allyship that you get from a variety of people, those come to mind for me, mainly amplifying my voice when, for whatever reason, I felt like I wasn't heard or I couldn't speak up. But doing it in a way, I think someone mentioned it earlier, how inviting people in, not shaming them when that's happening. So kind of along the same lines, doing that in a way where it's not saving me, but it's recentering my voice in the conversation, if that makes sense. And I think that happens a lot. For some reason, women do struggle with that more than men, it seems like, where their voices get talked over or they're not heard. It's interesting. I was watching, there's a great nature documentary on Apple TV right now about sounds in nature. And there's one and there's a lot where the male creatures have these deeper voices, and they even talk about the gorilla, how deep it is. And that's because it does carry so much further. And the females aren't heard as much. And I thought, oh, maybe it's just a bylaw, and maybe it's there's more to it than someone intentionally not hearing. I'm trying to do cup half full there, but it is hard when you can't find where to get your voice heard in bigger group conversations, and whether that is just because it's a quieter, more timid voice, whether you can't find the right time to sneak your voice into the conversation. One thing we've been doing a lot with on the engagement side here, and really thinking about how you get more voices heard is, how are the ways that we get nonverbal people the opportunity to show their voice and to speak out. So in a way, that's a different form of allyship, right? If you're thinking intentionally when you're doing design reviews, for example, in your office, are you providing ways when you're structuring those to really let different voices be heard in different ways? So maybe that's not the conventional allyship, but those are just some of the ones that came to my mind when we were talking about this.
Yeah, I like us thinking it's both who's been an ally for us on our journey, and what does good allyship look like. That I think we can weave in both, and we do have a question in the chat. So, what suggestions would you offer to help those starting the journey deal with work-life balance? So it's so big. I'll while you're thinking about it, I'll start with, for me personally, I feel like I've gotten to a place in my life that I don't want to waste time on feeling torn between taking care of the work thing and being, living my life. And the more that I can bring the things that fulfill me personally into my daily work life, so I'm not doing, it's not a split. It is, of course, there are work responsibilities and there are personal life things, and there definitely, there's separation, but I more weave it in between. So I try to get outside because that fulfills me. I start my day with a morning meditation. Before coffee, I spend 10 or 15 minutes, and I do it every single day. And that's for me. It clears my mind. It helps me settle into the day. And I've recently started drawing every day. And it's literally, it could be 3 minutes, it's not a major thing. And then the other side, though, on the work-life balance is sometimes work is, it's ridiculous how much there is to be done. And I feel like I'm looking at my desk right now, and like there's these notes of, okay, don't forget that, and there's this other thing, and I'm just like, feel like I'm in triage mode. And for me personally, if I can start the day thinking, what do I need to accomplish today? And then at the end of the day, check that. Yes, I did get that, or I moved it a little bit further down. It got a little bit forward in what needed to be done. It helps me mentally feel like I have a greater balance. So I would love any comments on allyship, how to be a good ally, and work-life balance.
Well, I hate the work-life balance thing because it makes it sound like it should be balanced, and it's like it's never going to be. When you work for 5 days and you have 2 days off, that's unbalanced. But I think what I've learned the most is it's going to ebb and flow, and there's going to be deadlines. There's going to be times when you just have to work more, right? But then you also, when you have the downtime, or the projects are in between deadlines, or there's just not as much, like take advantage of that. For so long, I felt like I had to just be there in the office and like present because that's what you're supposed to do. But really, when things got tough, like for me personally, and I was burned out. I had to be able to reflect and say, what do I need right now? Because nothing's working. And I need a reset. And that's hard, but having strong allies to give you the confidence to even say, Hanmei, like push pause. Like, why are you pushing yourself so hard? Like, is it worth it? I don't know. But I have a group of women that I get together with probably once every 2 months. There's 4 of us. We don't always get together because we've got things going on. We all have kids and other things, and we're at different parts in our lives. But to have that sounding board for each other, even on a text message of like having a tough time, can we get together and just talk through it, or just, help give me other perspectives or other ideas. It's been really, really a huge asset. And we've been together, gosh, before the pandemic, so at least 5 years, maybe 6 years. Hard to believe, but having a strong group of women that I can rely on, that aren't at my firm and aren't closely tied to me and my projects, like that can be a sounding board, has been a huge piece of it. But I think just work-life balance, go easy, have grace, know that dishes aren't always going to get done, grocery shopping isn't always happening, but where you can hire out and get help and pick up groceries, or have a person mow your lawn every month. I don't know, but you got to rely on other people too. Don't put it all on yourself or your family.
I'm happy that my husband's not on the call, because I think he would say, when are you going to start your journey to finding work-life balance? And it's not it's a self-imposed kind of labor of love thing, where sometimes I just can't stop working. But there are, all jokes aside, there are times where there's nothing you can do, and the deadlines are there, and you're working crazy hours. And I've pulled my share of all-nighters way too late in my career. And I think the important thing is to protect your personal time as much as possible. And what I mean strategy-wise is to really prioritize what needs to be done to do your work successfully, and just not get bogged down in the details or the things that aren't relevant at that moment. And management is a huge part of this too. It's just general project management. It's also managing your own time. And it's something I'm still learning all the time. It's just, what's the best use of my efforts right now? What will help move us forward? And what is something I might just be doing because I'm not letting go of it? Or, kind of the broad brushstrokes, 10,000 feet down to the very, the nitty gritty details of when is it time to dive in, and when is it time to just make sure you've covered all your bases so the team can move forward. And sometimes that's just enough to be able to say, okay, I'm helping everybody move forward. Now I'm going to go home and get rest, because I need to be rested to come back and do this tomorrow. It's hard to juggle. And, I have personal hobbies. I love to sing. I love to perform. I have family time, beautiful kids. And those are all things that I need to make time for. Sometimes, what do they say? The busiest, if you want something to get done, ask the busy person or something. I find that that is true, in that it's one more thing that helps you prioritize, because you have so many things, you're juggling so many things, you really do have to choose what's important, or the plates or bowls fall, whatever that phrase is. I think I need to spend more time learning my anecdotes. I'm just kidding. But I believe that truly.
Yeah, I don't think I want to give advice on work-life balance either. I will say, when I go on vacation now, I erase the apps off my phone, so I can't check Teams and I can't check email, because otherwise I know I will. So I just completely erase them off. I wanted to go back to allyship though for just a moment, because there's another kind of ally that I was thinking about that a coworker and I at work have kind of been serving as this for each other, where we're practicing more radical transparency, where we take each other aside and go for a coffee, go for a walk, and share when they observe us something that we did, that each other, something that I did that maybe wasn't the best way I could have done something in a meeting, or the way I communicated. We're really working on communication in our office. We have a number of different initiatives, and right now we're both in the middle of reading Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, which has just been pretty amazing. Anyway, that's been great. And you have to be really vulnerable to do that, both on the giving and the receiving side. But to have someone like that who can say, hey, I know you had good intentions, but this is what happened instead. Anyway, thought I'd share that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing us back to allyship, because I actually like the idea of us wrapping in that way, wrapping up with even repeating and amplifying some of the things that we've already spoken, and anything else. Like, I think anyone on this call, we can all be better allies.
Mhm.
It really is something that we all should do. In any circumstance, there's a power differential. Someone is more of an authority, has some kind of power over someone else in a setting. So the more you can identify that, it doesn't have to be called out, but recognizing that there's a power differential and standing by the one who is might be more vulnerable, might not be able to speak their own, or their voice might not be being heard. And I liked the calling out while calling in. I had to jot it down. I think that's a wonderful guiding principle. And the comment that was made, Elisa said, I believe this is correct, when you introduce someone in a setting where they may not know other people, so they are new to the setting, whether they're new to their field or not, doesn't matter. But if they're new, they're in a new circumstance, introducing them as a valuable member of your team, you've given them, like, you've acknowledged that they are valuable to you, and you've conferred something on that, and we can all do that. So let's just do we got a few minutes, and I think we can just like popcorn any things that you would want to see in allies. Like, what makes good allyship?
I really like the whole piece that you just talked about supporting people and introducing them. I'm like, a strong memory for me where I knew, like, I learned what not to do. Was we were in a client meeting, and I was the contractor, and the intern for the architecture firm was in the meeting, and she was there the first one. And so the client comes in and is like, well, who are you? I wasn't expecting you to be here, and we don't have room for you. And it was like, whoa. And so it was like, okay, no, right? Like, this young woman, intern, bless her heart, you got there early, deserves a seat at the table. She's an intern. How else she's going to experience? And so it was like, she can have my seat. I just got up and was like, she can have my seat. You can find me a seat, but she's got mine. And it's like, it really caught the client by surprise of like, oh gosh, yeah, that was a jerk move, right? Like, but it's like those types of things. It's like, it does come down to like supporting from across all different levels, and just finding people where they're at, and amplifying them, and raising them up, giving them that opportunity.
Introduce myself and let people know I grew up in North Carolina, so there's a Southern accent that comes through all the time. And I also was taught old school etiquette, and I was taught that in any circumstance, you know how there's you introduce this person to that person, and there's right way to do it. It actually is just based on whoever is the most vulnerable. You always introduce the other people to them, so that, like, grandma, this is my friend Shelly. Like, grandma wouldn't know. So, it's not just that they're the elder, but the person who is most out of their element, you make sure they know who everybody else is.
Yeah.
And it's a very lovely way to hold that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Heather?
I think another.
Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say one more thing is that a person who's feeling vulnerable, or someone that might be struggling may not always reach out and ask for that help. So part of being a good ally is being observed and trying to just recognize when someone needs your assistance and then offering it and listening actively. And, you know, that's a little bit difficult whenever where many people are working from home, but it's trying to kind of engage and recognize that someone might not be comfortable asking for help. And so just offering it and being open when that person's available to talk to you.
Anything you want to add, Heather? And then we'll wrap up.
Oh, add. I don't know. I think we've hit a lot of the great ones. I don't think I do have anything to add. I'm all
No,
good.
that's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this was, thank you all. I've learned a lot, and I also feel like we've shared a lot, and I appreciate the candor and the honesty and the authenticity. It's very lovely.
Thank you all for showing up for this. I mean, thank you to our panel for showing up for this.
Thank
and
you.
Providing their insights.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Okay.